This is a little out of my wheelhouse. Our good friend Cordell, when I told him about what I was thinking about doing, he said, "Go meta." And Corinda talked about Facebook relationships and how they can flame out. This is about that. I'm going meta. When Sibel and Todd convinced me to come out of my self-imposed retirement from readings until my book is finished stance, I planned to tell an adorable story about the rules my brothers and I had surrounding television in the 70s growing up. My mother was adamant about one rule: no ditzy women. My mother, a nurse who later ran a hospital, was a genuine feminist and not going to have her 3 sons be influenced by the women on Three's Company, for instance. To this day, I've never seen an episode of Three's Company. I don't think I've missed anything. I wanted to tell my cute story with feminism at its core, but that's not the story I'm going to tell tonight. In mid-March, I was invited to an event hosted by a local queer personality, Shelley Lipton. Shelley Lipton. I've been a fan of Shelley's for years and really appreciate what she's done to foster LGBTQ writers. I still do. She's written essays I've agreed with and ones that I haven't, but she's always made me think. Shelley's been open about her struggle with man-hating. She's written about the differences between Castro gays and mission queers. Somehow the queers in the mission are edgier and their struggle harder to identify than those in the Castro. Years ago, when I was gay bashed, the men who bashed me and nearly gave my friend permanent ocular damage didn't care if I was a Castro gay or a mission queer. Neither do the men and women of all races who come to my neighborhood, the Castro, looking to bash gay men still. When I first moved to Berkeley in 1988, I was puzzled by the Women Take Back the Night March, which happened annually. Men weren't allowed to participate. During one such march, a cameraman was beaten by some women leading the march. I remember thinking, how are these women going to get their message out? Which quickly led to my belief, which I still hold, that women need good men to take back the night. Together for good people. We all need to be safe. In college, many times, including queer studies courses, I was made to feel like the symbol of the patriarchy. Yeah, I suppose if you put me in a suit and gave me a haircut, I could be a Romney. But you know, I'm not a Romney. Neither are all of my male friends here tonight. Treating white maleness like original sin is getting oh so very tired and is no longer acceptable to me. The invitation I received from Shelley this past March was for a tribute to Valerie Solanas on the 25th anniversary of her death. How many people know who Valerie Solanas is? Not everybody. Valerie Solanas was a paranoid schizophrenic who wrote the SCUM Manifesto. SCUM is an acronym for the Society to Cut Up Men. Valerie's life is a tragic tale. She was a self-identified lesbian who was homeless, and when not prostituting herself to men, she could be seen on the streets of New York City with her typewriter. In the depths of her untreated mental illness, she produced her manifesto. It basically states that all men will do anything to get to the promised land between a woman's legs. All men. Not so much. And yes, all men are pigs and should be cut up. She imagined a female utopia devoid of men. When asked if SCUM was satire, she claimed it was dead serious. She wrote a play entitled Up Your Ass, which she gave to Andy Warhol, who apparently lost it. She also had a small part in an Andy Warhol film. In 1967, Solanas began self-publishing the SCUM Manifesto. I know women from that era, the late 60s, who were in college, who actually processed whether or not they should sleep with men and then cut them afterwards. Or if they had male children, they should give the male child back to their father, because men, we don't need them. Turning, right? Adorable. So she began publishing the Scum Manifesto. Olympia Press owner Maurice Giordius offered to publish Solanus' future writings, and she understood the contract to mean that Giordius would own her writing. Convinced that Giordius and Warhol were conspiring to steal her work, Solanus purchased a gun in the spring of 1968. On June 3rd, she sought out Giordius, who was gone for the weekend. She waited in his office for hours. She then went to Warhol's factory, where she found Warhol. She shot at Warhol 3 times, with the first 2 shots missing, and the final wounding Warhol when she shot him point blank as he was laying on the ground. She also shot at the art critic Mario Amaya and attempted to shoot Warhol's manager Fred Hughes point blank, but the gun jammed. Valerie wanted to perpetrate violence in 2 locations that day, which could have brought her body count to 4. She served only 3 years in an institution for the criminally insane. She stalked Warhol for years after the assassination attempt. I started to read the thread of the invitation for the event page on Lipton's event page. And it was all, she was one of our badass feminists. She was an outlaw woman. Go, Valerie. We need more women like Valerie. And I was keeping my cool, just letting people, I'm not going to this event, just keeping my cool. And then a woman who's a professor emeritus from a college in the East Bay with severe Joan Crawford bangs. His profile picture is like this on Facebook. Said, Valerie was a great satirist, a genius of language. Simone de Beauvoir compared Valerie's Scum Manifesto to Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. Hate is an aspect of human emotion, she wrote. I could not take it anymore. So I wrote, a brilliant satirist doesn't need a gun. And we were off to the races. Someone named Brian, who describes himself as a playwright and provocateur, wrote, Matthew, fuck you. This was liked by Shelley Lipton. Bry's follow-up was, ugh, I bet you're straight. No, actually, Bry, that's a picture of me and my partner of nearly 20 years marching for marriage equality. Bry, ugh, marriage equality, even worse. It was about this time that I started to get personal messages into my Facebook email box saying, good for you, I'm so glad somebody's sticking up for what I just can't speak up for myself against the great and powerful Lipton. And lots of trans women who were bringing up issues of their own surrounding the Scum Manifesto, which I found very interesting. A friend named Kiki, who's not his real name, whose wife is a professor at the college that I graduated from, said, Bry just broke up with his long-term male partner, and he might be a little sensitive right now. Yeah, what a loss for his partner. So the thread continues. Bry then wrote, sorry. Kiki said, look, if you guys get together, I'll give you 75 cents to shake hands and be friends. To which Bry wrote, bang, bang. Adorable. Someone named Chris wrote, Valerie Solanas was someone who went around trying to murder people. Her violence did real damage to people's lives. She was in the same league as someone like Dan White. Her one manifesto is entertaining. While her one manifesto is entertaining, she's not really someone who is deserving of accolades. It's in poor taste at best. And our professor emeritus with the severe Joan Crawford bangs, she might if she's a woman. Someone named Max wrote, Solanas was a crackpot, but many interesting and disturbing, enduring writers are crackpots. She did attempt to kill Andy Warhol, and the wounds he endured as a result changed his life for the worst. That was a criminal act and a deranged act, and Warhol was a brilliant artist who certainly didn't deserve to be shot. But again, she was someone who deserved a better life than the one she got. She had a pretty tragic existence. I don't think she should be emulated, but she shouldn't be remembered as, but certainly she should be remembered and is. To which I wrote, ah yes, the trifecta of writing whimsy, paranoid schizophrenia, and violence. Someone then wrote, I realized that I couldn't expect people to think violence against women is wrong while condoning violence against men in any way. It's just not okay, just because she was a woman. Then Shelley Lipton came in and said, geez, everybody, wow! Then I wrote something like, I hear Charles Manson wrote some great music. Apparently Jim Jones was a pretty compelling enough to get folks to drink the Kool-Aid. And well, you know, the Unabomber, like Solanus, had untreated mental illness, a manifesto, and perpetrated violence. Shelley, I would actually love to do a Unabomber show. Someone named Zeal wrote, I wrote a mini musical about the Unabomber. The severe Joan Crawford, Professor Demetrius. Valerie was a lesbian but sold sex to men and went to the factory to force Warhol to give her the script. She never had a gun in her hand before and meant to scare him to get what she wanted, not to kill him. She shot wildly around the room. And once the bullet hit him in the stomach, she ran out and gave the gun to a cop. I tell the story of Valerie and my view of her writing, etc. in my memoir of the 60s, Outlaw Woman! I wrote, I'm glad that the trajectory of her bullets didn't kill anyone. What's your point, Matthew James DeCoster? You're a little hysterical about this. Valerie didn't kill anyone in her life. She served her time for her shooting. I wrote, I'd never tell a woman she was hysterical for voicing an opinion, or making an observation I don't agree with, or telling them to fuck off, or presuming their sexuality. That's good. Now what's your point about reminding us about Jim Jones? Like Jim Jones, mentally ill, had a compelling message for some, and caused violence. Over 900 dead people. It was at this point that Shelley Lipton defriended me. Admittedly, I was disappointed, but I don't... Oh, I like the hissing. That was good. Admittedly, I was disappointed, but I don't regret sending Shelley the following message. I wonder if you'll defriend those who didn't engage in respectful discourse, and not just those who had questions regarding your event, which I'm sure, given your history, which until now I was a huge fan of, was meant to be provocative. But, by all means, please support those who told me to fuck off and attack me for being supportive of gay marriage. All the best, your former fan and advocate, Matthew James DeCoster. Shelley replied, you are not respectful. This is my private page, and if you don't like what's going on, go away. Don't treat it like a bathroom wall. Your comments are offensive and have given me stress all day. I don't want to be friends with someone who acts the way you do. Congrats for spreading the strife all day. You weren't asking real questions, you were just being a jerk. Harassing a person for unfriending you is crazy, by the way. As for it being her private page, we had 152 Facebook friends in common, more than my partner and I do. In the previous 10 months, Shelley had announced her engagement, her ongoing desire to have a child, the 10th anniversary of her sobriety, and very recently waxed poetic about her previous affinity for the cocaine. Yes, Shelley is very, very private. So I replied finally, got it. Legitimate observations aren't safe and considered disrespectful on your wall. Fuck off and bang bang are. I guess we've had different experiences with bathroom walls. I'm off to the Marriage Equality March now. And as for the definition of crazy, we'll agree to disagree. The next evening, I worked a fundraiser for a non-profit literary festival I worked for, and unbeknownst to me, just guess who our featured writer was. Yep, Shelley Lipton. I said, hello Shelley, perhaps we should have coffee sometime. Shelley, who was with her fiancé, looked down at my name tag, looked up at my face, had a flash of recognition, and sort of walked away without saying a word. Even though I had been defriended, I could still see Shelley's page and wasn't shocked to see the following. All of 2 of my posts had been deleted, and this. Shelley wrote, "Who knew putting on a show about Valerie Solanas would be so controversial? I've been told she's no different than Jim Jones, Dan White, and Hitler. By men," in all caps. "Discuss. I promise not to unfriend anyone this time." Hitler? Really? Deleting respectful commentary that doesn't fit your predetermined narrative? This is just like Fox News. Not only did no one mention Hitler, but Shelley's use of the H card speaks of desperation. Someone named Kim wrote, "Don't trust anything negative a man would say about a bodacious, troubled, complicated, and awesome lady like Valerie Solanas. It's simply a good rule to follow, I'd say. Why should we not be controversial? She was far out. People just can't deal, which means we haven't progressed as a species, I'd say." Someone named Jen wrote, "Hitler, Jim Jones, Dan White, last time I checked, those were men who were responsible for the death of others. Solanas may have attempted to kill Warhol, but not comparable." Someone named Walsh wrote, "Of course she's different. No one would celebrate a man who would..." Someone named Walsh wrote, "Of course she's different. No one would celebrate a man who attempted to kill someone and justify it by explaining how troubled and uncomplicated they were." Shelley. Walsh, I think the ongoing celebrations, and this is a really good point. Walsh, I think the ongoing celebrations of people such as William Burroughs, Sid Vicious, Carl Andre, and Roman Polanski challenge this comment. This is such a great point, Shelley, but I would have included Norman Mailer as well. However, unlike Scum, the work of Burroughs, Vicious, and Polanski holds up as art. Someone named Ash. No one would celebrate a man who attempted to kill someone and offer no explanation. This happens constantly. Explanations are sometimes given and sometimes not. The question is, does attempting to kill someone invalidate their viewpoint? It's a good question, applied to all genders. Someone wrote, "I'm against violence, but Solanas is and was angry. I'm angry, and we need this anger. No apologies. Women have been destroyed in every way possible in literature and in real life." Rick, what is questionable about Solanas' attempt? Was the target? Was she striking a blow against male supremacy, or was it strictly personal? It was strictly personal. It was strictly personal. After the shooting, Valerie turned herself into the police stating, "I just shot Andy Warhol. He had too much power over my life." Someone named Tom said, "There should be art that offends the senses as well as the sensibilities. Art should make me question what I think is right and wrong, and question what makes me happy and sad and angry." Shelley, good for you for keeping SF out of its child-safe art bullshit. Art can be cute, sure, but sometimes it's going to be ugly and bloody and weird and unsettling. And thank you for that. It's really easy to not go to a reading, in fact. Most people never go to any of them. Shelley, it's really easy not to go to a reading. In fact, most people never go to any of them. Yeah, I seldom go to readings, and I loathe celebrating literature. Chris, I'm not interested in feminism that gives women a pass when they act in patriarchal ways. HUD, I take from this conversation that it's an internal conversation between white women and white men, yet they refuse to admit it, so they hide their power, referring to themselves as women and men, when together they are joined at the hip in oppressing the world. Watch out, Shelley, you're a white woman. Someone thinks you're part of the problem, because you were born that way. Shelley, and I agree with this. The situation for females is so globally terrible, it is a wonder that more women don't lose it and react violently. And it is seriously shocking to me how quickly people are to demonize one of the very, very few women who have. I react quickly to violence regardless of who the perpetrator is. That's just in my wheelhouse. Shelley continues, there's something about Valerie as a frustrated female, poor, queer writer that is really interesting too. All her violence was around her work not finding a place in the world, which is still a problem. How many queer, female, people of color, trans writers have had a moment where they'd like to blow up the New Yorker? And now get ready for one of the most disturbing things I've ever read. Shelley. I just think that when you take into consideration the vastly different contexts of all the acts of violence, it seems absurd to compare her to Dan White. I mean, it's not like Harvey Milk wouldn't give Dan his payback. I misread that. It was playback, but at the time I'm like, what the fuck is she saying? Like Harvey Milk, if he had survived, he was going to go out and shoot Dan White? She wasn't making any sense to me. She went on to describe the event. To aid the endeavor, Scum will conduct the turd sessions, at which every male present will give a speech beginning with the sentence, I'm a turd. I'm a lonely, abject turd. And then proceed to list all the ways he is. His reward for doing so will be the opportunity to fraternize after the session for a whole solid hour with the scum who are present. Zara. Can I also just say, as a white Jewish woman, I'm pretty much over any and all comparisons to Hitler. Never happened. Never happened. Hitler was never mentioned. I wish this one was the most insane I had heard, and of course it's not. Zara, the only person that mentioned, once again, Hitler was Shelley Lipton to further her causes. Someone who I know, who may be here tonight, who works at a fantastic bookstore, wrote, I don't object to anyone celebrating the work of a murderous artist, but it bothers me when I hear Solonist supporters imply Andy Warhol deserved to get shot. Andy was not a privileged prince of the patriarchy. He may have been a greedy social climber, but he grew up in a desperately poor working-class home, helped tear down the elitist wall separating low from high culture, and was the first artist to promote work with a visibly queer sensibility. And then my new friend from Iowa wrote, I'm glad you are now asking people to discuss. We'll skip ahead. Now we're back to the B.E.B. Bry, playwright and provocateur. Unfriending is the new castration. Bring on the thumbs down. Dislike. Cut all the turds array. Doesn't B.B., the sad playwright and provocateur, sound like a real catch? I think his ex may be better off. My new friend from the Midwest also wrote, I don't recall anyone on the initial Facebook feed comparing Valerie Solanas to Hitler, but maybe that happened somewhere else? No, it didn't. Also, as far as I know, Andy Warhol was gay, and that makes me even more sad about celebrating someone who shot him. I'm going to skip ahead. Shelley canceled the planned Solanas tribute that was supposed to happen. On the cancellation notice, she wrote, Hey everyone, this event is canceled. I truly didn't expect to conjure up so much anger, and I don't have the heart, mind, stomach to be involved in the fighting. Carry on. Carry on. Really? You had no idea, Shelley. Either this is a disingenuous statement or you're truly clueless. Shelley, I don't believe you're clueless. I applaud your being so open about your not having a degree, but being perceived as a person of letters. However, taking your critical thinking course in college was one of the best things I've ever done for myself. This, of course, freed me from only thinking critically and allowed me to be a critical thinker. There's a huge difference. And what a gutless endeavor this misguided tribute turned out to be, Shelley. It caused strife you caused strife and couldn't take the heat, particularly from the transgendered community. People who felt trapped in their bodies who were transitioning to be men. A transgendered woman confronts Shelley and says, I'm disappointed that your response to the genuine concern felt by trans people and others is that you don't have the heart to participate in the anger, and indeed, that you characterize our concern solely as anger. It isn't shameful to apologize or to admit that you may have not fully thought about something and need to learn more. Shelley, I'm not sorry about anything. I just want to stop having these interactions. I just want to stop having interactions like these. Joe, and that's why I'm disappointed. How fortunate that you can have an opinion, that you can have the option to wish away these interactions and the general concerns of trans folks and others so easily. On another site publicizing a Lipton-sponsored event, it states that the Solanas event was canceled due to death threats against the host and the participants. That's why I changed the names here. I don't know whether to believe the reason or Shelley's exasperation over the interaction she didn't want to have. I find it funny, sad, and highly ironic that an event to give tribute to Solanas, who advocated and perpetrated violence, may have been canceled due to threats of violence. I guess violence is only adorable in the abstract. I think it's notable that Shelley had a book come out just a week after this ill-fated Solanas event, and a movie opening in June at the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. It seems to have been a stunt to gain publicity that didn't go quite the way she intended. But a shrewd woman or man might observe there's no such thing as bad publicity. Shelley knows about being provocative. She knew exactly what she was doing. I'm going to end this by saying I'm wearing a Kevlar jockstrap. I have 2 bodyguards, Scott Stokes and my partner, Carhart. And I just want to end with something that I consider to be art that speaks to what I believe. This is Tennessee Williams and Streetcar Named Desire. But some things are not forgivable. Deliberate cruelty is not forgivable. It is the one unforgivable thing, in my opinion, and the one thing of which I have never been guilty of. Thanks a lot for listening.